Do you remember when Microsoft bought Rare? Well, when they did, for $375 million, I might add, Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo Tooie were eventually re-released on Xbox Live Arcade. And with their re-release came a demo version. These demo versions are quite literally the full versions that are just locked down until a license key is detected. And in the case of Banjo Tooie, the demo lets you play freely until you enter Mayhem Temple, the game's first world, where a 20-minute timer starts on screen. And after 20 minutes, or if leaving the world earlier, you will be kicked out of the game. But if we never enter Mayhem Temple, then the timer never starts, and we can go much further in the demo than intended, but with huge limitations. For one, we can't save on the demo version, which is whatever, but Banjo Tooie is a long-ass game, and so if the power goes out for whatever reason, there goes any progress. Also, I love how they try and sell us to buy the full game. Why not take the plunge? And Jiggies by the bucket load. But more importantly, it means all the collectibles in Mayhem Temple can't be collected, including Jinjos, notes, and of course Jiggies. And even more importantly, it means we can't learn 3 crucial moves: Grip Grab, Briggle Blaster, and Egg Aim. Egg Aim allows us to aim eggs at enemies instead of randomly shooting in a direction, like in Banjo-Kazooie. Briggle Blaster is a move where Banjo can hold Kazooie like a rifle and use her to fire eggs while in first-person view. And Grip Grab allows us to grab and hold onto ledges, where we can either climb along the side, drop down, or climb up. These moves are pretty essential throughout the entire game. Just to get to the second world requires Grip Grab. However, with some clever workarounds, TSR Stormed, one of the biggest speedrunners in the Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie community, discovered that we can skip using these crucial moves and get all the way to the end of the game in this demo version, while still collecting almost every collectible. And I'm gonna cover it all in this video. I'm Ty from Pressa, and this is how the demo version of Banjo Tooie was beaten. Well, almost beaten. But first, are you sad the holidays are over? Ready to take on 2026? Well, then get your butt off the couch, because this message is for you, and is sponsored by Raycon. Thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this video. Now that the holidays are over, it's the perfect time to upgrade your headphones for the new year. Whether you're getting back into a routine or setting new fitness goals, Raycon's bone conduction headphones has you covered. Seriously though, I've been using them non-stop throughout the last few weeks for everything I do. They're so comfortable and never fall out of my ears, which is great for when I'm working out. And they sit outside your ears, so you can listen to your favorite music or podcast while still staying aware of what's going on around you. Like when you're cleaning and there's a random person at your door. Oh my god. What I also love about these headphones is that the ear hooks are adjustable by 35 degrees, allowing for optimal comfort and listening style. And the sound quality is so high, you'll feel like you've teleported to your favorite video game. But the best part is the battery life. The bone conduction headphones can last for 13 hours, so you feel like you rarely have to recharge them. They're waterproof, dustproof, and everything you'd expect from premium headphones without the premium price tag. Right now, Raycon is having a 20% off sale site-wide. They also offer a 30-day happiness guarantee, but there's no way you won't be happy with them. I love them, and I know you'll love them too. It's the perfect time to upgrade your audio for the new year. Click the link in the description box, or go to buyraycon.com/pressabc to get 20% off site-wide. Thanks again, Raycon, for sponsoring this video. And now, back to the video. One thing that's annoying about Banjo Tooie is the amount of cutscenes at the beginning. While some can be skipped, like this Klungo cutscene, which can be skipped by backflipping and then beak busting onto this ledge, the majority of the rest can't. This includes the Klungo fight cutscenes, King Jingling, and the Jiggy Wiggy cutscene when first entering Isle o' Hags. But once we're finally through all that, it's here we come across the game's first world, which of course we can't enter. Normally, we would need to enter the world and learn Grip Grab, so that we can grab and pull ourselves onto this ledge here that takes us to the plateau where the second world is. But with a backflip and a precise beak bust, we can get onto this ledge without needing Grip Grab. This beak busting strategy will be utilized a lot throughout the run, and was used even earlier in Jinjo Village to get onto the red Jinjo's house to collect the Treble Clef, a collectible worth 20 notes. Notes are needed in Banjo Tooie to learn moves, so the Treble Clef is definitely valuable. Before going to the plateau, we can also grab this Jinjo in the tunnel here. In this case, it's the blue Jinjo, and they are a family of 7, meaning we'd have to collect all 7 blue Jinjos to get a Jiggy. And this is where some RNG is introduced into the run. If you didn't know, the colors of the Jinjos and their locations in Banjo Tooie are randomized with each playthrough, meaning in another run, this blue Jinjo could be a different color, and each colored Jinjo family varies in size. For example, the white Jinjo family is a lonely one and only has 1 member, and so collecting that one white Jinjo would mean getting a Jiggy. So if this blue Jinjo happened to be a white Jinjo, we could collect our second Jiggy. There are a total of 33 Jinjo patterns, but only 6 patterns will allow us to get to the highest amount of Jiggies possible without going into Mayhem Temple. So essentially, we want there to be as many same colored Jinjos in Mayhem Temple as possible, since that will allow us to finish more patterns outside of that world. We'll just have to hope for some good RNG and that the Jingos we can collect will be enough to give us some extra Jiggies. Jiggies are of course needed to open the different worlds throughout the game, and normally to open the second world, Glitter Gulch Mine, we would need 4 Jiggies. Right now, we only have the 1 Jiggy from King Jingoling, and since we can't go into Mayhem Temple to collect more Jiggies, we won't have enough Jiggies to unlock Glitter Gulch Mine. But the good thing is, we don't need to. Instead, we can perform what is called Glitter Gulch Mine early, and clip into the world with a beak bust in a precise spot where there's a small crack between the wooden frame and the grate that blocks the world off. Beak busting allows us to pass through the crack fast enough to clip into the level early. It's kind of similar to bit clipping, which I've discussed in other Banjo videos on the channel, but the difference is this crack is a couple units wide, while bit clips are 0.00001 units wide, which is a huge size difference. Glitter Gulch Mine is a great world for this challenge, because almost every Jiggy can be collected without needing any of the Mayhem Temple moves. We really just need Bill Drill, a move learned in this world, and a more powerful version of Beak Bust that is used to destroy all the boulders throughout the world. To unlock the next world, we'll need to have 8 Jiggies, meaning we'll need to collect at minimum 7 more Jiggies here. But like I said, we don't really need any Mayhem Temple moves, and as luck turns out, we can collect exactly 7 Jiggies right now. The Jiggy at the end of the underground pipe maze, the Jiggy in the generator room, which normally requires navigating narrow, winding passages, while at the same time powering up each generator with fire eggs to light up the room. But with a Beak Bust here, we can bypass all that and climb this ladder leading directly to the Jiggy. The Jiggy in the power shed, which is intended to be collected using the Banjo and Kazooie split up pads to light up the room, but if you have the path memorized, you don't need to do that. The Jiggy in the waterfall cavern, we're supposed to use the turbo trainers to get inside the cavern, but while completely unnecessary, you can actually clip through the ground here and swim into the cavern from underneath, which is obviously much cooler. The Jiggies from the crushing shed and defeating Old King Cole, both of which involve using Mumbo's magic, and of course, the dreaded Jiggy from beating Canary Mary in a race, which requires transforming into Detonator Banjo to free Canary Mary. Using Mumbo or transforming requires collecting Globos, and luckily we can still collect the 2 Globos in this world. The only 2 Jiggies we won't be able to collect is the one in Ordnance Storage, as this requires Breagle Blaster, though it's interesting that we can still learn Beak Bayonet, a move that can only be used during scenarios where the Breagle Blaster is being used, and the Jiggy from reuniting Dalberta and Bullion Bill. Dalberta is trapped in Mayhem's Temple prison ground, so freeing her would involve going into this world, which we can't do. The last Jiggy is behind a waterfall, but without the springy step shoes or a clockwork Kazooie egg, we can't collect this Jiggy right now. But once we've unlocked these moves, we can come back and easily grab it. There's actually a trick called Detonator Levitation that would allow us to collect this Jiggy now as the detonator. A well-timed A then B press while swimming against a sloped wall will push the detonator down. As the detonator causes damage to itself, it will float up high enough to collect the Jiggy. This trick, however, is only possible on the US N64 version of the game, and since the Xbox version is based on the European PAL version, it was patched out of the game, and so we can't do it here. As for the notes, we can collect all 100, and all 5 Jingos, though we can't collect the Jingo on the water tank in the water storage room until much later via Jolly Roger's Lagoon. Now, there are 2 other collectibles that are less important, but since the goal of this challenge is to collect as many collectibles as possible in the demo, they need to be mentioned, and those are the extra honeycombs and Cheeto pages. In this world, we can collect all 3 extra honeycombs and all 3 Cheeto pages. However, I will only highlight the ones that require interesting workarounds to collect, like the Cheeto page at the bottom of the water tank, that we're supposed to use Grip Grab to reach, but instead can Beak Bust to get up. After leaving Glitter Gulch Mine, we now have enough notes to learn the fire eggs, and these fire eggs are needed to activate this switch that opens the door leading to Pine Grove, where the next world is. The only challenge is, we don't have A-game, which is intended to be used to hit the switch. So we'll have to find a way to hit this switch without aiming. Hitting the switch without aiming while on the ground here is just not possible. But there is a mound next to the fire switch we can utilize. Here we can line ourselves up with the switch, but the top of the mound is higher than the switch, so we can't just fire eggs from here. We need to instead run forward and down the mound, and then fire an egg at the spot where the camera turns down. If done correctly, the fire egg will hit the switch and we can proceed to the next world. In Pine Grove, we can pick up some more notes, learn the grenade eggs, and then take the silo back to Wooded Hollow to see the almighty Jiggy Wiggy, and unlock the next world, Witchyworld. And by doing so, unlock Glitter Gulch Mine and Mayhem Temple. Unlocking Mayhem Temple is fine, we just can't go into it. Let's see how many Jiggies we can collect in Witchyworld. We can collect the Jiggy from ringing the Cactus of Strength, as this involves Bill Drill, Beak Buster, and Grenade Egg, all moves we have. The Jiggy at the top of the Dive of Death Tower. In this world, we can learn Split Up, and with this move, that means we can collect the 2 Jiggies from playing the Crazy Castle minigames, as reinflating the Crazy Castle requires Banjo Kazooie to split up, and only Kazooie can play the Hoop Hurry challenge. With the Split Up move, we can also collect the Jiggy on top of the Spiral Slide in the Inferno, though this move isn't actually needed. We can just Beak Bust onto here and jump to grab it. Using Momo's magic to bring power back to the Star Spinner and Saucer Apparel, we can collect the Jiggy from climbing the stairs of the Star Spinner. and beating the Saucer Apparel shooting minigame. This one requires freeing the saucer from Glitter Gulch Mine, which we were able to do. What's interesting to note about this minigame is that it doesn't check for A game to initiate it. It'll just automatically put us into A game once we start. Mumbo's magic is also needed to bring power back to the Dojum Dome, but then Wumba's transformation powers are also required to pay to attempt the challenge. Wumba's hut is high on this cliffside, which typically requires grip grab. But with a precise beak bust, we can get onto this higher platform of the gondola station and leap to the cliffside. And then from there, do some maneuvering to get up to Wumba's tent. The only Jiggy we can't collect is the one from defeating Mr. Patch, as this fight requires A game to hit a patch and spawn the flight pads, so we can't defeat him. And then there's the Jiggy from rounding up the Boggy Children. We can round up 2 right now, but the obese one requires Banjo's Taxi Pack move to carry, and we don't learn that move until Terrydactyland. But once we have it, we can return and collect this Jiggy. We also get another Jiggy from collecting this orange Jingo, as it completes the family. Regarding the notes, Jinjos, empty honeycombs, and Cheeto pages, we can collect them all. The Jinjo in the tent we can collect by talon trotting up the tent rope, and then we can jump from the gondola to avoid grip grab to collect the Jinjo next to Cactus of Strength. We can also avoid a grip grab and get to the top floor of the gondola station, then ride over to do the same thing on the other station to get an empty honeycomb. And then avoid grip grab once again to collect this Cheeto page in the Cave of Horrors, though this one requires coming back to the world after learning Leg Spring and Wing Whack to reach it. That means we're leaving Witchyworld having currently collected 9 Jiggies, thanks to some good RNG with the orange Jinjo, taking our total Jiggy count to 17, which is more than enough to unlock the next world, Jolly Roger's Lagoon. This 17 count doesn't include the Jiggy behind the waterfall in Glitter Gulch Mine, or the Jiggy from rounding up the Boggy Children, in case you're wondering, as we'll have to come back later for those. Ah, Jolly Roger's Lagoon. There's something about this place I just love so much. And for the first time in this challenge, we can collect every single collectible in this world. Perhaps not very surprising since most of the world is underwater. We're supposed to use Momo's magic to oxygenate the water. But if we go back to Spiral Mountain after learning Beak Drill, we can free this fish. And as a reward, this fish teaches Banjo and Kazooie how to swim faster and increases their oxygen from 6 to 10 bubbles, allowing us to swim throughout Atlantis without needing Momo's magic and saving us from another cutscene. Now, from now on, instead of going over every Jiggy in each world, I'll just talk about the Jiggies or collectibles that require some interesting strategies. Starting with the Jiggy we get from powering up the UFO. Ice eggs are needed to restore the power, and once we shoot an ice egg into whatever this is, we have 20 seconds to activate the other 3. The most commonly used strategy is just standing in the middle of the UFO and using A game to shoot ice eggs into each thingy. But without A game, we can just shit eggs into them. This is more time consuming, but still doable within the 20 seconds. Besides this Jiggy, there is the Jinjo in the Seaweed Sanctum and this empty honeycomb on this pipe, both of which are intended to be collected with grip grab. But with a beak bust, we can collect this Jinjo, and with the leg spring and glide, we can return and collect this empty honeycomb. While we eventually can collect all the Jiggies, currently we can only collect 7 out of the 10 Jiggies, taking our total Jiggy count to 24, enough to unlock the next world, Terrydactyland. And this is where the difficulty picks up, as there's a lot in this world that to reach or collect requires A gaming or grip grab. To get the Jiggy from defeating the Rocknut tribe, we need to use a Clockwork Kazooie egg, a move we learned just outside the entrance to Terrydactyland. These unique eggs are used to hit the tribe members from their backside, where they have a gap in their shield, and are pretty powerful overall, as they can collect things that weren't intended to be collected with. For example, this Jiggy behind the gate, that is supposed to be collected by using the roar of the baby T-Rex, that we can instead collect by firing the Clockwork Kazooie egg at a very specific spot where there's a crack. And fun fact, most doors in the game have cracks in them because they're not placed symmetrically, and so we'll see the strategy used a couple more times later on. But without A game, these eggs are less powerful, and the tribe member in the train station in particular is pretty difficult to kill. The tribe members attack us if we get too close, so if we jump over to this one, he'll just whack us off the cliff. But if we fire a grenade egg at the tribe member, they will laugh at us and not attack us for a brief time. And by using that time to jump over to them, we can shit out a Kazooie egg and then kill him from the back before he's active again. The rest of the tribe are easy to take out. Then there's Terry. Terry is the boss of Terrydactyland, and is a battle easiest won with A gaming, but can still be won without it. Doing this requires climbing to the rim of the nest to either shit or normally shoot eggs at him to damage him. That might not sound difficult, but during each cycle, there's only a brief period where Terry is vulnerable to attacks, and so this method requires being really fast. There's actually only 2 Jiggies we can't collect. The Jiggy from beating Chompa's belly minigame, as this requires Breagle Blaster, and the Jiggy from helping the dinosaur family, though this one is almost possible. This Jiggy requires a lot to collect, and to help the sick child, we need to take him to the train station in Witchyworld and drop it off at Chuffy. We then need to take the train to the cliff top in Isle o' Hags and have Mumbo use the Mumbo pad in front of the station to heal him. The only obstacle though is opening the Isle o' Hags train station, as the switch is all the way over here, and since we can only ever be Banjo and Kazooie together or Mumbo in this area, we can't reach the switch. After some further digging, TSR learned that if we were in a normal file that could save, we can initiate what is called a delayed cutscene warp, or DCW, a glitch that uses cutscenes to warp to other sections of the game, and use this glitch to warp to Clifftop as Solo Kazooie, and then activate the train station that way. There's multiple ways to perform DCW, but in our situation of playing a demo with no egg aim, the only option available to us involves using Solo Kazooie to glide out of bounds in Witchyworld, stand out of bounds above the switch, shit an egg onto it, and then jump into the void to stop the gondola cutscene from playing. However, this causes a soft lock, since for some reason we spawn back at the split up pad with only Banjo. Kazooie never respawns even if we die, and we can't leave the world with only Banjo. So with current knowledge, performing DCW is not possible to collect this Jiggy. Everything else, including the notes, Jinjos, Cheeto pages, and empty honeycombs can be collected, and in doing so, we also collect the third and final yellow Jinjo, giving us another Jiggy. We also learn the moves Springy Step Shoes and Hatch, which allows us to go back and collect the Jiggy behind the waterfall in Glitter Gulch Mine, and the Jiggy from hatching Tip Top Sun in Jolly Roger's Lagoon, as well as Taxi Pack. This is a move we can only learn when we've separated Banjo from Kazooie. It normally requires Grip Grab to get to, but by using the move Pack Whack, a move we learned back in Witchyworld, we can get up to Gym Jars without Grip Grab, and by learning Taxi Pack, we can now go back to Witchyworld and collect the Jiggy from rounding up the boggy children. Next is Grunty Industries, which we have more than enough Jiggies to unlock. Typically, we'd enter the factory by opening the train station and taking the train in from another world. But instead, we can utilize the powerful clockwork egg and doors having cracks and get in from the backside. This factory is huge and is made up of 5 floors, a roof, and a basement. Getting to the 3rd floor normally requires Grip Grab so that we can shimmy across this cable, which of course we can't do. There are warp pads that can be used to get to different floors, but they must be activated first and can only be used by Banjo and Kazooie. There's also an elevator, but this can only be used by the washing machine transformation. But by using the washing machine and going to the 3rd floor, we can make our way to the warp pad near Mumbo's house, using enemies to take damage and give us a boost over boxes that are otherwise too high for the washing machine to jump over, and then use the same strategy to get up to the warp pad and activate it, allowing us to warp here with Banjo and Kazooie. Or we could just jump over to this ledge and beak bus to get onto it, which leads us to the 3rd floor. Onto the collectibles, which surprisingly, we can collect all of them except one Jiggy, though it's not easy. Just to get one Jiggy, we need to defeat the Welder, the world's boss. This boss is regarded as one of the most difficult bosses in the game, and just getting to him is a long, painful process. We need to first find the platform bolted to the ground in the boiler plant on the 3rd floor to make a Mumbo pad drop into the electromagnetic chamber on floor 2. Throughout the factory, there are 4 batteries that need to be collected to power much of the equipment, including the electromagnetic chamber, and only Banjo can collect them by using Pack Whack to stun them, and then Taxi Pack to transport the batteries to the 4 different areas that require power. One of the batteries is next to the electromagnetic chamber. It normally requires Grip Grab, but as we've already seen, Pack Whack is more than just an offensive move. It's also a great move that gives Banjo more height and distance in their jump, and with it, we can get over to the battery without Grip Grab. Once the chamber is open, we then need to take Mumbo, use his magic to disable the magnet, then come back as the washing machine to hit a switch to open the repair depot in the air conditioning plant of the basement where the welder is. Getting to the welder's room normally requires us to Grip Grab and shimmy across a cable, but we can just do a simple jump and flutter to skip this. The Jiggy from killing the tin tops on top of the 1st floor normally requires a game to kill, but instead can be killed by shitting out grenade eggs, which can be a bit tricky to do as Kazooie only has 2 honeycombs of health when separated from Banjo. Then there's the Jiggy from blowing up the barrels in the quality control room. Without a game, this Jiggy is extremely difficult to collect. We're supposed to shoot the blue rare barrels from here, and avoid shooting the green barrels, as these are filled with toxic, and hitting just one of these barrels will fill the room with toxic gas. But as we shoot more barrels, the conveyor belt gets faster, and the barrels get closer together. Since we can't aim, the best plan is to get onto the conveyor belt, which we can do by entering as only Kazooie. We can then leg spring, a move learned in this world that allows Kazooie to jump much higher without Banjo, and then wing whack to get onto the conveyor belt. And then from here, we need to shit or shoot grenade eggs into the barrels to obtain the Jiggy. Again, this is extremely difficult, as it requires perfect timing, but TSR pulled it off and showed that it's possible. The only Jiggy we can't collect is the one from destroying the clinkers, as it requires Spriggle Blaster. Outside of Jiggies, there's an empty honeycomb in the train station that can be collected easily with Grip Grab, but without it, we need to jump onto this bar and then walk very carefully and precisely to collect the empty honeycomb. And this can be pretty hard as the camera is very stupid here. While we're able to collect 9 out of the 10 Jiggies in this world, 2 of the Jiggies require moves learned in the last 2 worlds. So we're currently leaving the world having collected 7 Jiggies, which is still more than enough to open the next world, Hailfire Peaks. In Hailfire Peaks, we can once again collect every single collectible except for one Jiggy, and that's the Coliseum Kickball Tournament Jiggy, as this requires going into Mayhem Temple to transform into Stony. The only other Jiggy that we can collect that requires some creative workaround is the one from climbing the Coliseum. Collecting this Jiggy involves utilizing the split up pad. We're supposed to go into the Coliseum as Banjo only, climb up this chain, and then grab a ledge and head outside. We'd then switch to Kazooie and use the flight pad to get here and switch back to Banjo, where we'd then need to grip grab across to another switch that opens a cage near the bottom where the Jiggy is. But with Banjo's Pack Whack move, we can skip all the grip grabbing parts. We can actually skip the entire split up puzzle by performing an out of bounds glitch called Clockwork Slit Clip. That essentially involves using Kazooie to fire a clockwork egg through this wall using the crack, and because the egg spawns within the crack, the game can't eject it correctly back inbounds, and so we can get it to fall out of bounds down into the Jiggy. And then there's this empty honeycomb in the Fireside train station that typically would be collected using grip grab, but instead we can use solo Kazooie's flat flip, then wing whack or glide to it. We learned the move glide in this world, and this allows us to go back to the earlier worlds to collect Jiggies we couldn't collect before, like the Jiggy in the Smuggler's Cavern and Jolly Roger's Lagoon. It's here we also learned Shack Pack, a solo Banjo move that protects Banjo from hazardous environments, and one that allows us to go back to previous worlds and collect more Jiggies. And finally, we have the 8th and final world, Cloud Cuckooland. And when heading back to Wooded Hollow to unlock the world, TSR was this close to accidentally going into Mayhem Temple and losing everything after 6 hours of playing. That's how dangerous this challenge can be. But thankfully he didn't, and now we're in this magical world. And would you believe that we can collect every single collectible in this world? Well, believe it, because we can. Really, the two only interesting things to note is that the B transformation doesn't have a reticle while first-person shooting, because the game checks for A-game to initiate. And this is something previous transformations would experience as well, like the sub-transformation in Jolly Roger's Lagoon. This doesn't affect obtaining any collectible, but it makes aiming less precise. And then for the minigame inside the pot of gold, the game once again doesn't check for A-game to initiate it, and just automatically puts us into it. Because we can drain this water, we collect the Jiggy in Terrydactyland from giving Dippy water, and because we can push George the Ice Cube off a cliff, we can collect the Jiggy from cleaning the Piglet's pool in Jolly Roger's Lagoon, which involves a couple of other steps in between. We also collect a blue Jingo inside the trash can, which completes the family and awards us another Jiggy. There are some fun strategies though used to collect 2 other Jiggies. There's a Jiggy inside Super Stash that we're supposed to unlock by finding 4 numbers scattered across the world that we need to activate using clockwork eggs. But there's a big gap in Super Stash that we can easily shoot a clockwork egg through to snag the Jiggy. The next one is a bit more complicated and it involves a number of warps to collect the Jiggy in the cheese wedge. We're supposed to plant a seed and then use Mumbo's rain dance to make the seed grow into a vine that we'd then have to climb up with only Banjo to get this Jiggy. But instead, if we get back control of Banjo and Kazooie by taking damage during a warp transition as the clockwork egg, we can go into that warp as Banjo and Kazooie instead of the egg. On the PAL European version of the game, which the Xbox version is based on, the developers attempted to patch this, but they ended up missing a frame, and so there's only one frame to take damage to gain control. This glitch isn't necessary, I just thought it was cool to include in the video. Alright, now that we have completed all we can do in each of the regular worlds, the final place on our adventure is Cauldron Keep. Cauldron Keep is the main residence of Gruntilda's sisters and requires 55 Jiggies to unlock, which we have. And the next obstacle we have to face is the Tower of Tragedy, a Jeopardy-style quiz game show similar to Grunty's Furnace Fun in Banjo-Kazooie. I mean, I guess there's also the battle against Klungo, but he's no threat. The Tower of Tragedy, though, is a huge threat to this challenge, and it all comes down to RNG. Part of the quiz includes picture questions, and if one of those pictures is of anything in Mayhem Temple, then the run is over, since the 20-minute timer will trigger once the picture is loaded. But the game will also kick us out of the demo once we finish the question and teleport back to the quiz. All the hours TSR put into this run all comes down to whether or not we get a Mayhem Temple picture puzzle.
Oh? No, I guess it's not Mumbo's. Alright, Jarrell. Okay. Alright, Witchyworld. Here we go. Okay, GGM. Are we gonna get through round 1? Oh, thank God. Okay, we got through round 1. Here we go. Alright, HFP. Here we go. I say that every time, but it could be any one of these. Alright. Oh my God, we got it! Oh my God! We got perfect RNG!
Somehow, there was no Mayhem Temple picture puzzles, and because of that, TSR was able to beat the Tower of Tragedy. After doing some math, TSR figured out that the odds of being kicked out of the demo here is around 14%, as there are 10 possible Mayhem picture questions out of 71 possible questions. And if you're wondering about the credits, which also shows Mayhem Temple, then there's no concern here of being kicked out, as the credits overwrite the current map ID and use a credits map ID instead, so the game doesn't think it's in Mayhem Temple if it shows on screen. Plus, we can also just skip the credits entirely. That means there's only one obstacle left in this challenge, and it's the battle against Gruntilda, which we need 70 Jiggies to unlock. Let's recap what we've been able to collect. Everything but 2 Jiggies in Glitter Gulch Mine, The 2 Jiggies we can't collect being the one from reuniting Delberta with Bully and Bill, and the one for completing the Ordnance Storage Challenge. Everything but 1 Jiggy in Witchyworld, the 1 Jiggy we can't collect being the one from defeating Mr. Patch. We can collect everything in Jolly Roger's Lagoon. Everything but 2 Jiggies in Terrydactyland, the 2 Jiggies we can't collect being the one from completing Chompa's minigame, and the one from helping the dinosaur family. Everything but 1 Jiggy in Grunty Industries, the 1 Jiggy we can't collect being from destroying the Clinkers. Everything but 1 Jiggy in Hailfire Peaks, the 1 Jiggy we can't collect being the one from winning the Coliseum Kickball Tournament. We can collect everything in Cloud Cuckooland. And finally, we were able to collect an additional 5 Jiggies from Isle O'Hags. The 1 Jiggy from King Jingling, but only 4 Jiggies from only being able to complete the orange, yellow, brown, and blue Jingo families, which takes us to 68 Jiggies, 2 short of 70. Had we had the right Jingo pattern, which there are only about 6 out of 33, we would have been able to collect exactly 70 Jiggies, but the odds were not in our favor here. But the anticlimactic part is that in the end, it doesn't even matter, because we can't enter the final Hag 1 battle without having learned Breagle Blaster. The loading zone leading to the fight blocks us from entering it if we don't have the move, but never actually checks if we have the move while inside the fight. This is why the any % route skips getting Breagle Blaster, since we can wrong warp into the fight using DCW. But we can't do DCW to warp into the fight in the demo, since it requires leaving a saved file, which we can't do. I guess not being able to save was more impactful after all. But still, it's pretty fucking crazy that with some good RNG, we can collect exactly 70 Jiggies and reach just before the final battle of the game, which means you can practically beat all of Banjo Tooie without having to buy the game. And at this point, since there's nothing left for us to do, we can finally go into Mayhem Temple and collect all the collectibles there, as long as it's within the 20 minutes. The only thing we can't collect is the Jiggy inside the treasure chamber, as it requires going into Terrydactyland, and doing that would cause the demo to end. In the end, TSR was able to collect 81 out of 90 Jiggies, coming up just short of collecting that last possible Jiggy to make it 82. But if properly routed, he has no doubts this would have been collected as well. He also collected all 900 notes, all 45 Jinjos, all 25 empty honeycombs, all 25 Tito pages, 17 Globos, and all 24 moves, which is almost every collectible in the game, all on the demo, which is insane. But yeah, that's how the Banjo Tooie demo can almost be beaten, and how almost every collectible can be collected. I need to give a huge shout out to TSR Stormed for coming up with all the cool strats showcased in this video, and for doing the actual challenge. He put 9 hours into this run, and I'm very grateful for his huge help with this video. Without him, this video wouldn't have been possible, and I'm also very grateful he didn't accidentally walk into Mayhem Temple. And if you're curious if it's possible to beat the Banjo-Kazooie demo as well, then the answer is yes, and it's a lot simpler. All we have to do is die with a Jiggy in our hand, which we can do by jumping off this hut with 1 honeycomb of health, and then die from taking ball damage while collecting this Jiggy. After this, the game will never kick us out of the demo. Right after collecting a Jiggy is the Jiggy dance, and the game kicks us out after doing this dance on the 3rd Jiggy we collect. But if we collect our 3rd Jiggy while dying, we skip the dance, and the game can never initiate the text box for kicking us out. Anyways, that's it for me in this video. Thanks again to TSR, to Raycon for sponsoring this video, and to you for watching. This video is dedicated to our YouTube members and Patreons: Sinistar Man, Y-Sphere1, David Baden, Charm City Gamer, Clone Trooper Wheeler, Serena Bliss, Nice Gamer Music, Young Smoky VP17, Real Backfish, Rebecca Lyons, Phoenix Lazuli, Lebur, Puddles Megan, Koi13, and Arcus Kale, The Frost Spirit 115, and Blue Pikmin is the best Pikmin, and if you say otherwise, then Louie will eat your soul. Also, this is a completely real name.